After all this time, I finally thought up an intro. Like 2 months later. Or has it been 3 months? Hello, my name is Soila and I talk about books on this channel. Here's my Twitter and Instagram. If any of that looks interesting to you, follow me on there. And let's just get into it. So today we're talking about short stories and comics. If you are joining in for the first time, I have been running a readathon this month, July, on African fantasy and sci-fi, mostly and specifically focusing on such stories that are centered around Africa or Africa-inspired worlds. So this is the third week, I think, the third video I'm making about the readathon, and this week I was focusing on reading short stories and comics. Now there's so much stuff out there. I have a list. You can check in the description if you want to check out the readathon social media pages and the list. I keep talking about the list, but it's just a list filled with resources, links to short stories, lots of short stories that are free, and also novels and poems and comic books that have been written in this genre. So I just read 2 short stories and 2 comics because I was really busy this week, so I forgive myself. And there's so much going on, especially with the comics. Nigeria is currently killing it. There's so many comic studios, and if you follow the Afrofantasylit Instagram page, I'm always trying to repost their stuff. So for this week, I'll start with the comics since I've been going on and on about that. The first one I read was Beasts from Venus. This is it. It's written by Kiprop, Kimutai, and illustrated by Salim, Busuru. And they have a comic studio called Avandu. Now, I got this copy in a very weird way. There was an event that was happening and I arrived on time, but since it's Kenya, I was super early and I basically arrived slightly before or slightly after the guys holding the event, and one of the people who arrived early was Salim. So I actually did get a signed copy. He signed it for me. This is like the only signed thing I have, I think. I loved it. This is a very short comic. It is 34 pages and the illustrations are super huge and super interesting. So what the story is about is there's a boy who has lost his mother, and the comic starts when him and his father are standing like at a hill, and his father is telling him how he's going to the land beyond the hills they're looking at. So this is like pre-colonial times in Kenya. The story is based off the Nandi tribe. So the father is saying bye to his son, trying to explain to him why he's going, and that he will be taken care of by his aunt and uncle. And before he leaves, he tells him, I think the boy just lost a tooth, and he tells him to give the tooth to Assis. Assis is the Nandi god, and she will give him a stronger, better one, i.e. he lost a milk tooth and like a permanent tooth is gonna grow in. And like he just like throws it into the sky, and I don't know whether they're actually seeing this or not, but like she actually catches it, like she's in the sky and she actually catches it. I just wanted to bring that out because I just wanted to say that in this book, God is a woman. This story is really jarring. I love the art, the expressions are what did it for me. Like people's expressions are insanely intuitive and very lifelike, and basically the story follows this boy. Now it's like after that it cuts to like several years later he's like a young man. He's basically sent into the forest to do something, gets lost because he was chasing a chicken to eat, which it's really sad because like his aunt and uncle are really abusive to him, even after his father said they would take care of him as if he was their own. That didn't happen. I can't spoil the ending basically, but just know it involves a mythical Nandi creature. That's all I'm saying. This book is shortlisted currently for the NOMMO Awards, which are they award African speculative fiction, comics and graphic novels, short stories, novels, all that jazz. And I really hope it wins. I mean, I don't think I've read any of the others on the list, but I really like this one. It's short, but it packs a punch. That last page, the last panel that I am looking at right now, and I can't show you because I can't spoil. I really like this because like it draws on Nandi folklore. The second comic book I read is called Black Moon. It's about a young boy who lives in a magical world where everyone has magic and he's the only one, he's one of the few who don't, so he's called a blank. And it's set in Nigeria. They speak in pidgin at times, which is so interesting to see in comic bubbles. And it's produced by a studio called Comic Republic. Again, find all these people on Instagram, just go on that list and find all of them. And it's super interesting because the colors in the comic blew me away. Like everything is glowy and shiny and like neon. I only found one chapter, like the first chapter, but the premise is so interesting because like there's like this fight where you can become, I think in this world, like you can become an elite fighter. I can't remember. I think they're called the masquerades or something. And to become one of them, you have to like pass a couple of things. And the first of them is like fights. It reminds me of anime so much. On to the short stories. I read 2 short stories, as I said. The first was How My Father Became a God by Mandila. And it was so nice because it's told like a folk tale, like an African folk tale. And it's about this young girl whose brothers want to sell her off because her family lost their money. It's like pre-colonial times, so their family lost their money because I think they suggest it's because of the dad, but I don't know. And so they're really poor and they can't pay dowries to any of the girls they want to get married to, so they want to sell their sister off to this old man who wants to marry her, and both her parents are against it. And so her dad is an inventor, and that's why she calls him a god, because he creates things out of nothing. And so he creates so many contraptions. One of them is like a plane, I think. What I liked is how things are described, instead of, because right now we have words for things, but like before things were created, they didn't have words for them. So I think there's also like a gun that's created and there's no word for a gun. So just the way things are described reminds me of the story of I can't remember which prophet it was. I think it was also an Nandi prophet, now that I think about it. In pre-colonial times, like, or just as the British were arriving, he had a vision of a white snake passing through the land, and that turned out to be trains. But it was such an interesting story, and at the end it's like the girl is now telling this story. It's like it's from her perspective, but she's an old woman by then, and she's like telling us the story. The final story I read is called Virtual Snapshots by Abbotswana. Oh, I didn't mention Mandila is from Uganda, and so this author is from Botswana, and this is her name. I'm just gonna put it on the screen because I feel like I won't say it right. And she's written a couple of stories, and this is one of them. It was published in Vice, and it's about a future where we've destroyed the earth because of climate change. I love how all these stories tackle climate change, and I feel like sci-fi really tackles a lot of things, and people just need to pay more attention. And human beings both live virtually and like physically, so like you can go into a pod and like get into the digital world and interact, and like your body just stays there, that sort of idea. And it's about, I mean, there's a story embedded in there where there's this girl I think they're in Botswana, and it's about this girl who it has a very sad ending. This is also not a happy ending story, which I won't spoil, but basically she's in conflict with her family because she's a bastard. I don't know whether her mom had an affair or whatever, but she's an outcast. And so she goes back to them to sort of plead with them to accept her back into the family. And I won't describe how that ends because that is destroying the ending. And it's super interesting because I was like, I did not see this going there. I think that's the goodness in short stories, is what I'm realizing. They really they're short, so all these stories are able to build so much. For the comics, of course, they have the art to build the world, but even for the short stories, a very clear picture is built in your head, and they all tackle issues that are very current and very relevant, either physically relevant like climate change, or like mentally, like dealing with separation from family, or things like that. So they all tackle real themes, but they're just really short, so I'm very envious of how they manage. In October there's going to be a Black Speculative Fiction Readathon. I don't think it's been super announced, but I'll just put the picture of at least 2 of the people I know who are taking part or who are like hosting it. It's been such a fun time with the readathon. I've interacted so much with authors, readers, all sorts of people through the Afrofantasylit social media pages, and I've just learned so much, and I have so much more planned. But the first thing I'd like to say is, for the end of the readathon on July 31st, I will be talking to an author. Yay, Miss Dondra. So she has just written her debut book. I think it came out in like June, and it's called World Breacher Called by the Blessed. It is super interesting because I'm reading it right now, and let me just say, it deals with demons and hell. That's like a bit of what's going on, and it's set in Lesotho. I hope I've said that correctly. I'll be talking to the author on July 31st on my Instagram page, which I'll put again on the screen, so you can watch out for that. I'll put the details in the description of the announcement of what time it will be and all that, and what we'll be talking about. But basically, if you want to pick that book up before then, again, it's on the list. Make sure you get into that list. It has so many good resources. Anyway, that's it for today. See you guys next time.
Came to your city all night, it was litty. We blow like 50 on 9 and